feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer!
I don't care what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. Dom and Chris here, and before we begin, as always, make sure you watch our videos, like, follow, share, subscribe, and comment. Doesn't even have to be positive, but just comment. It helps us with the algorithm. And we're continuing our block, Chris, of some of the best, craziest NFL playoff games of all time.
That's right.
Yep.
And today we're talking about the Music City Miracle. When I was first researching this, I just kept typing in Minnesota Miracle Man. And I was going down a different path, but it was still the best research I've ever done.
How many shirtless photos of Emilio were there?
Not enough.
I feel like that's the name of a men's, exotic review up in the Twin Cities, the Minnesota Miracle Men, and they just come out to quack, quack.
That's right.
Quack.
That's right.
Quack. But yeah, the 1999 AFC Wild Card. It's the Titans against the Bills. If you're not familiar with it, really interesting kind of matchup between these two teams. Very defensive-minded.
I was just going to say, it's not the kind of the playoff games that you want, which is like touchdown, but it is a very two great defensive teams going up against each other in a low-scoring game, and then we get into this thing that happens, and it makes it a classic.
Yeah, so a little bit into it. The Titans that year, coming off 3 Jeff Fisher specials, 8-8 seasons. They finished 13-3, led by quarterback Steve McNair.
Yep.
That season, almost 2,200 passing yards and 12 touchdowns, and then 8 on the ground. But much like his career, he misses some games, and they need to get helped by Neil O'Donnell as their backup quarterback. When my mom asked me about researching, I said, do you know who the Titans' backup was that year? And she said no. And when I informed her of it, she became quite enraged. That name's like Voldemort between her and I. We just don't say it.
Yeah, no, I get it.
There'll be a day where she gets, she slips the bonds of sanity into senility, and I'll just come home and find her baking in their little cookie footballs. She's just going to be like, Neil O'Donnell should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell.
Real sports
If he had thrown the ball to his team like he was supposed to, the Steelers never would have lost that game. But he stepped in and he played pretty well for them.
Throughout the season.
McNair was dealing with chest, back, and ankle injuries, which he's like RoboCop.
Yeah.
Throughout his career. They're a ground and pound offense, though. This is prime Eddie George.
Eddie George kind of leading that offense, and then you have old Stevie Metal Bones. I couldn't think of something right off the top of my head. That's good enough. But it really is defensive-minded and ground and pound. And control the clock.
They don't have, their receivers are either too injured or too young to really make an impact. Their best receiver is their Pro Bowl tight end, Frank Wycheck.
Oh, yeah.
He's their money guy as far as being able to put points on the board. The O-line, Bruce Matthews is in this game. He's from the 92 game. Where they were the Oilers, not the Titans.
Yep. It's the comeback. Everybody knows that game. Bills were beating them 35, or Bills were losing 35-3, and then they end up Oilers end up losing 41-38. But yeah, there's still players from that team starting,
especially on the defensive side.
Especially on the defense.
Did you see who their defensive coordinator was?
No,
Greg Williams. Because he's got the 2 Gs.
Because he's got the 2 Gs.
The pre-Bounty Gate, let's cover up Sean Payton's Vicodin, Greg Williams. They were nasty, and they had the Defensive Rookie of the Year that year with Jevon Kearse, the freak.
He had 14 sacks that year.
14 and a half, yeah.
It's crazy.
Their defensive line was really good with Jason Fisk, Henry Ford, and Josh Evans, though. Eddie Robinson had 6 sacks that year, one of their linebackers. He was in that game, the comeback game.
Yeah.
And then back in the secondary, Samari Roll had a great year for them, really coming into his own with 4 picks and 3 sacks. And Marcus Robertson is still back there from 92.
Yep. So there's a lot of feelings coming in this game for the Titans. They stuck with this. Some guys stuck with this organization, and they're like, ooh, we get the Bills probably one last time.
One last time against the Bills, and you're also thinking, like, we have to get revenge.
Yes.
Like, we have to, like, erase this entire memory because we moved because of that.
I was just going to say, it killed the franchise, and we're still here.
There's no team in Houston yet, so they're like, we literally murdered a franchise.
Yep.
Or a city for its franchise. They started 9-3 and won their last 4. Unfortunately, despite beating Jacksonville twice, they're the highest win total by a wild card team up until they started playing like 17 games.
I was going to say, so like they literally were a team that should go to the playoffs anyways. Wouldn't have happened, Yeah,
no.
However many years, but I forget when they brought the wild card in. But like literally, this is a team that should go to the playoffs. They go 13-3, and it's looking good for the Texans. That's all I could say.
The Texans.
Oh, sorry, the Titans. You got me on that Houston thought.
Yeah, I know. That's what I mean. It's
I know.
so weird that they'd name them that. But at least they get a home playoff game.
Yep.
And then the Bills coming in are 11-5, led by head coach Wade Phillips, and have a pretty good team. Doug Flutie's down from the Great White North in Canada.
That's right.
Going 10-5 that year for them with almost 3,200 passing yards and 19 touchdowns. And they're a ground-based offense, though, now. This isn't, the
Air it out.
K-gun from back in the day. Antoine Smith and Jonathan Linton have almost or over 1,300 yards rushing, and Thurman Thomas is at the end of his career. Mm-hmm. This is one of the guys from that game. Sam Gash was their Pro Bowl fullback, and then Eric Moulds was in his prime at this point of his career. He had a really good season. And offensive line, we got Tucson's own John Fina on there.
Oh, I saw that. That's pretty cool.
From South Point in the U of A. And then Reuben Brown made the Pro Bowl. But their defense is where their bread was buttered. They're the number 1 defense in the league. And like a standard Wade Phillips team, they're a 3-4, one-gapping type of defensive line with a big dude in the middle with Ted Washington. Mm-hmm. Phil Hansen is there. Bruce Smith is still there, chasing the quarterbacks. Sam Cowart led the team in tackles, and then on the back end, do you remember Kurt Schultz?
No, I don't think so.
It was one of my favorite Berman nicknames because he called him Sergeant Schultz from Hogan's Heroes.
That's great.
So anytime he made a play on primetime, he'd be, I see nothing.
Oh, my God. That's so good.
Steve Christie and Chris Moore are still there from 92.
So a lot of guys were there from 92.
But we don't have Doug Flutie playing in this game, and it's not for the reason Steve McNair missed games.
Well, I thought this was interesting because they said there was a couple of changes that if you watch the first half of this game, the Bills look horrible. So Doug Flutie gets replaced by Rob Johnson, and this came out after the Bills owner, Ralph Wilson, really pushed for this.
Do you want to know why, though?
No. I mean, I do want to know. I don't. Yeah.
Yeah, no. But they so they traded for him from Jacksonville. He was Brunell's backup.
Yep.
And they traded a first-round pick, and they gave him like a huge contract. And when you look at quarterbacks, Rob Johnson's the guy you want your quarterback to look like, but he's garbage.
Yep.
And Doug Flutie looks like a guy who works at the fair, but is awesome.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if it was aesthetics or what, but they played Johnson in that last meaningless game against the Colts, which they won. But Indianapolis was playing like second and third stringers.
Yeah, it's a weird decision, especially going into the playoffs. And then I saw they also kind of switched up their defense a little and went 4-3 for some of it, didn't they?
Uh-huh.
Which was not – this is what I mean. So, like, different quarterback and really different formation in this defense that kind of got them there. It was a kind of a shaky first half for these Bills, which is it was interesting.
Yeah, so we kick off the game on January 8th, 2000 at Adelphia Coliseum there in Nashville. And, the Bills' first drive is just a harbinger of things to come. They go 3 and out, and Evans sacks Johnson.
Yep.
And that was the other thing why he sucks so much is he held the ball for so long. So he would get annihilated, and because he got injured in 98, that's when they put Flutie in.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, when he lost his job because couldn't get rid of the football.
Yep.
Titans, first drive. It's much kind of like the Tuck Rule game, only it's not shitty weather.
Yeah.
Sacked by Bruce Smith makes them go 3 and out. Another 3-and-out after that. And it's just a punt fest for most of the first until about midway through the first quarter.
And you think, oh, it's a punt fest until somebody's offense breaks through. No, it's a punt fest until somebody's defense breaks through. And that's what's so, if you're a Bills fan, I feel like more than a Titans fan in this, watching this, and you're just going 3-and-out, and you're like, Doug's on the bench. Let's change this up.
Why not?
Yeah.
Like, why not just put him in? But they keep not doing it. And then on an ensuing drive, Johnson sacked by Kearse, fumbles, and the Titans get it with about 8:44 in the first quarter. They end up going 3-and-out, but they have such good field position.
Yep.
They send out Al Del Greco, who, had a bad 1992 game, and he misses a 43-yard field goal. And just what keeps happening is the Titans are moving the ball, but not enough to set up legitimate scoring chances.
Yep.
Because really they're playing it close to the vest by running George and then kind of hitting Y check. The problem is Del Greco's missing field goals, or they're sending Craig Hendrick out to punt. And we don't see our really first scoring opportunity until early in the second quarter. The Bills, after a Hendrick punt, start at their own 4 at the opening of the second quarter. And then Smith gets them out of their own end zone when he runs for 4 yards. But on 2nd and 6, Johnson is sacked by Kearse again, and the ball goes out of the end zone.
And this is where you see the first points on those board. It's 2-0 to the Titans. And, God, this is a boring start to this game. And it's just one of those things where the defenses are just so much better than the offenses.
I mean, there's two of the top. I mean, Bills are the best. The Titans are right behind him.
Yes, exactly. It might be 1-3 for the year. Yeah.
It's unbelievable. So because they have a safety, they have to punt the ball back to Tennessee.
Yep.
And Derek Mason has a 42-yard punt return.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, this game's done.
On the first play, though, from the Bills 28, Eddie George fumbles. And the Bills get it. The refs called Bruce Smith offsides, which negated the turnover.
Mm-hmm.
Later in the drive, Pat Williams, another one of their defensive linemen, another off. There were so many offsides penalties against Buffalo in this game. It was ridiculous.
So Buffalo had 64 yards in the first half. They had 44 penalty yards against them.
Yeah.
They were they almost had as many penalty yards as they had for offense. That's how bad this beginning of the game is for the Bills.
So due to the penalty yards, Tennessee just keeps feeding George.
Yep.
And they get all the way to 2nd and goal at the 1, and McNair runs it in.
Yeah, a little McNair
Magic.
Jumping. They're not doing the tush push at this time, so he actually ran it in.
He doesn't need anybody to push him.
No.
But with 11-19 in the second quarter, it's 9-0, and then you're kind of thinking will Buffalo ever score? This might be enough.
Yes.
This might be actually enough. Then the teams keep trading 3-and-outs until 3:56 in the second quarter, where it's 3rd and 2 with Tennessee is on their own 48, and George fumbles again. He wasn't a big fumble guy, but for whatever reason in this game, he just couldn't get it done. Schultz forced it, and Hansen recovered at the Buffalo 43, and then you're thinking, oh, great, maybe we can get something going, until Johnson sacked by Fisk again.
Yep.
Forcing another 3-and-out. And with 1:46 left to go, the Titans get the ball at their own 22, and they have a huge run by Rodney Thomas, George's backup. And when that happened, it was almost like a signal to the offensive coordinator, we still have time.
Yeah, we could still get into field goal range here.
Yeah, so McNair on 3rd and 10 runs for it and actually moves the sticks. And they call in the replay. We'll bring up replay later.
Yep.
And it actually gives them the first down. Another encroachment penalty on Hansen pushes them even further. 2 passes to Yancey Thigpen and Frank Sanders net them 19 yards. And they get to 4th and 4 at the Buffalo 27. But what ends up happening is Del Greco misses the kick with 4 seconds left.
I was going to say, so he misses this kick. It's 9-0, misses the kick, but then what are the Bills doing the whole half? Holding.
Yeah. You never see that called on these plays on the defense.
Almost, literally almost never.
It was just completely out of their ass. So Tennessee gets to run an untimed down, which is just an extra shot for Del Greco 5 yards closer, and he drills it. I remember at halftime of this game thinking, Buffalo's never going to score.
No, that's what it really looked like. Not only did you're thinking you're like, well, I mean, sometimes they're going to get close. They're doing 3 and out and punting every time, and Johnson is getting cleared out almost every possession. He's getting a hard sack.
And Fina's out like early in the first quarter.
Yep.
Dude, he came in playing injured, and he's just like, I can't go.
Yep.
So they replace it. So you have a backup left tackle against Jevon Kearse and that attacking defensive line. And it'd be one thing if you were like, oh, man, Johnson played for a stretch during this year, and we felt like he had the hot hand.
He played one game.
Was absolutely no logic behind this.
No.
Flutie was your guy for the first 15 games. Johnson didn't even, he barely played at all. And then because he plays against Indy's backups, he's somehow the guy.
It's crazy. And just not switching out in sometime in this first half is crazy.
What I was thinking was, do you think at halftime, because obviously this is Phillips' staff, it's not Marv Levy, but some of those coaches or players were thinking about that one assistant from the comeback game?
Oh, yeah.
Just yelling and turning red like, what the hell?
Yeah. No, seriously.
Whatever happened at halftime, though, it definitely lit a fire under the Bills' ass, though.
Because the Bills actually came out in the second half, and unbelievably, their offense was clicking.
Yeah, and they went to the run, and it worked for them. Antoine Smith had a 44-yard run on the first play of the third quarter.
Yep.
As we know from the Tuck Rule game.
Yep.
Gash had a 6-yard catch, and then Linton got 2 runs for 8 yards. And then they literally just said, you know what, Rob? No more. You can throw it, but we're gonna run it a little bit more often.
Yeah.
Scores touchdown, and it's 12. It's a brand new ball, and if you're Tennessee, you got to be kicking yourself like, fuck. Now it's a game.
We should have put more points on the board because it's such a flip at the end of the first half, beginning second half, where the Bills, they're in this game. It's 12-7, and now their offense is clicking now that they know they can run the ball.
Mm-hmm. So Titans go 3 and out. Bruce Smith had a sack on the first play because that's just what Bruce Smith does. The Bills go 3 and out. And then with 9:55 in the third quarter, the Titans start at their own 33, and there was a big roughing the passer call on Bruce Smith.
Which didn't, if you look at it, not definitely now in the NFL, that's a roughing the passer. I don't think it should have been then.
Oh, no, not in those days.
No.
I mean, you could kick him a couple of times.
I know.
And when the ref's not looking, you can kick him a couple of times.
It's just a very light, weak call, and luckily, I guess,
Yeah, Buffalo. It's 3rd and 7 for the Titans at the Buffalo 39, and McNair's picked by Antoine Winfield.
Yep,
who has returns it out to the Buffalo 46. But what do? Kenny Holmes sacks Rob Johnson, and they go 3 and out.
Yep.
And then the Titans get a first down on their ensuing drive, but they're forced to punt. And then you're thinking, it's going to be 12-7.
It's going to be 12-7.
There is nothing exciting about this game at all, unless you're really into defense.
Yeah, it could go 12-10, but I feel like that's it.
Yeah, Christie will drill a 60-yarder. Just fuck it. The Bills start at their own 35 as we enter the fourth quarter, and there is a huge 37-yard pass to Moulds, along with a roughing the passer on Kearse later in the drive. So they're set up 1st and goal at the 7. It gets down to 3rd down, and Smith takes it in for another rushing touchdown. And
so now, unbelievably,
they're winning the game.
The Bills are up 13-12. They go for the 2-point attempt. They don't make it because 1 point does nothing for you at this point.
Yeah.
That was a lot of points. But look, it's such an insane score where you're like, Bills could win this 13-12.
13-12 is like an AL steroid era baseball game.
Yes. Seriously.
Just going to hit some freaking piss missiles over the monster. So with 12:45 to go, it's 13-12. What ends up happening, though, more of the same.
So I was going to say they just keep trading possessions,
back and forth,
until we get down to 5 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
And the Titans drive it all the way down for a field goal, and this is when, if you're a Titan fan in this game, watching this game, I feel like you're like, when it goes in, it's 15-13. They're like, we got this.
I got to give Tennessee credit, though, for this drive because of the way that they handled the clock.
Oh, yeah.
They really rode George on this drive, and not like where he's breaking these big runs, but you're setting yourselves up with like 3rd and shorts and 3rd and manageables if he doesn't get them on the first 2. And they're using the clock at this juncture, and because of their ability to run the ball, the Bills are out of timeouts with 1:53 to go after Del Greco nails that field goal.
Yep.
Like they stop them to where they have time on the clock, but they don't have any
But they don't have any timeouts. And then this comes into play. So if there's 2 plays that I feel like one gets overshadowed by this other one. And if this play was the one to win it, we'd be talking about it.
Totally. So they get an awesome kick return from Kevin Williams.
Yep.
Gets them at their own 39. And then for whatever reason, Rob Johnson wakes up. He wakes up on this drive. They have a 14-yard pass to Price. Then they have a really sneaky run with Linton for 12. I don't know if you saw that, where Tennessee's just basically like, we're in prevent mode.
Yep.
Just don't let him into field goal range, which means less guys in the box, which means good running play. Johnson gets a scramble for 3 yards, and on 2nd and 7 with 20 seconds to go, Peerless Price makes what should have been the play of the game. At least to me, he did.
Yeah.
So he catches the ball for 9 yards from Johnson to not only get the first down, but he gets out of bounds.
Which is so ridiculously important for them because they would have to spike the ball.
Yeah, and Buffalo, because they don't have timeouts, they just say, screw it, we're sending Christie out now because if he takes a sack, the game's over.
Yep.
So they send Christie out for 41 yards, and much like 1992, he drills it 16-15, and you're thinking
20 seconds left.
This is one of the most boring yet interesting games I've ever watched. Like high drama at the end, like the tuck rule. Like, all right, this is playoff football. I guess I can live with wasting 2.5 hours of my life.
I was going to say, because it is more of like a defensive effort that at the end you're like, oh, this was a good game. Looking back, first half, you're like, this game sucks. Looking back, you're like, oh, this turned out to be pretty good.
And there were big plays throughout the game where when you watch it again, you're like, that was awesome.
Yeah.
Like the Price one, I forgot about that until I watched the game. Well, a lot of people forgot about that after what we discuss next. So Christie comes up, the Bills are going to kick off, and as we talked about in the Epic in Miami, they decide to go the squib route, which isn't the worst choice with the time remaining.
No, but then you hear the announcers, and they're talking about it. They're like, I feel like they should just kick the ball as far as they can. Don't give them a chance to run it back. Make them run a play.
See if you can get a touchback, too.
Exactly.
Even though you don't get any time off the clock.
It's still...
Del Greco was shaky at best.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're getting him inside 40 to 45, probably going to miss it.
Yeah. It's not... Yeah, it's more of like a 50-50 whether he's going to make it. So you're right. They don't go with the full kick. They go with the squib kick, and it turns into one of the most ridiculous plays.
This is better than Stanford Band on the field to me.
Yeah.
Because, A, Stanford Band on the field was totally illegal. Like, there were multiple forward laterals on the play. One of the guys was down.
Yep.
John Elway, this is the worst way to end my college career.
I know.
Oh, God. What did I even do? So they squib the kick, and Lorenzo Neal, their fullback, catches the ball, one of the up men.
Yep.
He proceeds to hand the ball off to Wycheck. And one thing I learned about him, when he was at Maryland, he played running back. Mm-hmm. He was actually a really good athlete. I mean, obviously he played in the NFL, but I didn't know that about him. So he starts running to his right, and then he pivots and throws the ball all the way across the field. Who was there? But not Randy Moss. Kevin, I will forever know him as not Randy Moss.
Oh, God, that's so funny.
He could have been Kevin Dyson, but you know what?
He's not Randy Moss.
Well, he's Kevin Dyson in this. A few weeks later, almost Randy Moss. Almost.
And the play, when you watch it live, when he throws it, it looks so much like a forward pass that Bills sideline isn't even reacting.
Like, honestly, when you have that TV angle and you watch it like you would have on ABC.
Yep.
And the first time I saw it, I'm like, you can't do that.
Yes. No, seriously. It looks so ridiculously like the call would have been so obvious.
Yeah.
And then you go with the view that's directly right down that line, and it is the perfect pass.
Because parallel is still legal.
Yep.
And what people kind of learned after the game is it's not where the player is, it's where the ball is when he throws it.
That's the other thing is the guy's coming back. So it looks even worse because he's like a yard in front of where he's catching it. There's like all this stuff that makes it look like ridiculous. And if you're a Bills fan, you're like, what the hell is going on
you're
here?
Just like, oh my God. Well, it's Chris. It's back and to the left.
Back and to the left.
Back and to the left, like a Roger McDowell loogie.
And if you ever, you talked about this before the podcast, if you guys ever want to watch it, the way the commentators explode when he's just has that, because he just the way the play was set up, he like goes right and just turns around and fires it left. The whole left side is open.
Well, all of the Bills players over pursued.
Yep.
And on special teams, you have to stay in your lane. I don't care. You just have to stay in your lane, because if guys had stayed in their lane, they would have been there to tackle Kevin Dyson and not allow a perfectly executed picket fence for him to run down the effing sidelines. And the announcer was hilarious. It's like, there's the ball to Neal. Hands it off to Wycheck. Back to Dyson. He's got something.
Yep.
There are no flags on the field. Tennessee has pulled a miracle.
There are no flags on the field because everybody was waiting for him. You know what I mean? Everyone's like, obviously that's going to be like it was such an amazing play for Tennessee.
Like the crowd was going nuts, but then you talked about Wade Phillips earlier, like his reaction during the whole thing. Great.
Literally did not react because he was like, well, obviously that was a forward pass.
Yeah.
That's what everybody was feeling. And then you see that camera angle fucking right down the line and you're just like, that's a perfect play.
It was, and the Titans players had said it never worked in practice.
Yeah, never.
They ran it every Saturday, and it never worked. And Dyson wasn't even supposed to be on the field then.
Oh, really?
That position was Derek Mason's. I think he left with a concussion during the game. The guy behind him was Anthony Dorsett, and he was injured.
Oh, my
Dyson
God.
wasn't even supposed to, like, obviously you have to know what the play is.
Yeah.
He's not the design person. Mason was their, Pro Bowl caliber returner at that juncture.
That's wild.
Yeah, he was the third option, and he pulled that off. A 75-yard kick return for a touchdown. But then you get to the review, because inside 2 minutes, the booth reviews anything suspicious, and my God, was this suspicious.
Yeah.
So they go under the hood, and all of the angles, the commentators are talking about it, and you're thinking, like, there has to be indisputable evidence, because they called it a touchdown on the field, that it was a forward lateral, and when you watch it, you're like, I don't think they can do it.
No.
And I think it took them a really long time to get this out. And not like the Tuck rule where they're like, what can we do to screw them? I think the refs were more or less like, I don't think we can overturn this, A, because there's not enough evidence, and B, if we do, this stadium will burn down.
Yes. We
will be murdered.
Yes.
We will be unalived because we said that's a forward pass.
Yes, they will definitely sacrifice them at that point. And I think you're right. It's not like the Tuck rule, which we talked about this. They were just trying to screw the Raiders over. It was more of like, I want this to be 100% sure that it is unreversible.
Oh, 100%. Like, they're not in there looking to shoot. They're just like, this is a really close play.
Yes.
This is a really close play to where we have to get this right.
Yep.
Or
yeah.
Or we have to, make the right judgment.
Yep.
So.
And they did. I think so.
So they score, it's 22-15, and there's time for the kickoff.
Yep.
That's all that's left. And you're thinking to yourself, like, Could Buffalo do it one more time like Frank? Could they do it?
Yep.
I mean, they didn't do
No.
it, though. They didn't end up doing that. And that was the game. That was the entire game. And the trajectory of these two franchises from here couldn't be any more different.
Yes.
As far as if you're the Titans, not only did they win that game, they upset Indy. They upset Jacksonville wasn't really an upset. They beat them twice. And then they almost win the Super Bowl with Kevin Dyson, which would have been, oh my God.
Yep.
That dude would have been he could have run for mayor.
Yeah.
I mean, heroes get remembered, but Kevin Dyson never dies. But then you have the Bills because this is the last run for that Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, Thurman Thomas group of guys who made all those Super Bowls in a row and couldn't get it done. And moving forward, Flutie's not their quarterback anymore.
And everybody always says, what do you think would happen if Doug actually was our quarterback on that day? And you're never going to know.
You'll never know, but by that same token, they score more than 16 points.
I think so.
And with their defensive line, Flutie's legs at least prevent some of the sacks.
Yes.
So
For sure.
I'm not saying they're going to put up like a 30 burger on the Titans defense, but not 16 points.
No, yeah. It's kind of sad when you think about that, where the owner like steps in and he's just like, you know what? You know our starting quarterback? Now.
You know that guy you believe in and think can actually win you a Super Bowl? Well, guess what?
Guess what?
He's not playing.
We're benching him.
I've seen an interview with Wade Phillips and where he said, to this day, I don't know why
Yeah.
they had me do that. But he's like, that didn't come from me.
I'm sure.
And then the Bills, unlike the Titans, where you got McNair and George, and even though they didn't win the Super Bowl, they were pretty damn good over the course of the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Buffalo enters into this tailspin after this game. They don't make the playoffs until 2017.
Jesus. Yeah.
18 years
of just horrible play.
excluding maybe a year or two with Bledsoe where they were competitive.
Oh, yeah.
They were straight ass and just constantly getting pushed around by the Patriots, where you're just like, that you could have started kindergarten and graduated high school and not seen them win a playoff game.
Yep.
That's unbelievable. At least to me. I'm not even seeing win a playoff game. Make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Make the playoffs. And now, they're set up good for now, but that just, I think this game just, I can't blame it fully. I mean, they made a lot of stupid choices.
Yeah.
But that had to take the wind out of the sails for a hot minute there.
Yeah, for sure.
But they don't call it the Music City Miracle for nothing, folks. I mean, and good spiderweb to end on. Wade Phillips was fired after the 2000 season by the Bills. Do you know who their next head coach was?
No.
Greg Williams.
That's great.
Yeah. Dead serious. So, Music City
That's
Miracle,
great.
everybody.
Yep. Thank you, guys.